My name is Noah Price, and 5 years ago, I stood in the doorway of my apartment, holding a bag with everything I could carry. My heart was heavy, but the decision had been made. Sophia, my wife, stood just a few feet away, her arms crossed, lips tight, as she always did when she was upset. I had spent the last few years of my life building the company she'd convinced me to create with her. And now here I was, walking out, with nothing but a bag and a mind full of regret. "You know, Noah," she said, her voice tinged with sarcasm, "I guess you're not that smart after all." Her words hit me like a slap, sharper than anything I had expected. I had spent my days coding, designing, architecting the very systems that powered our business, pouring everything I had into the company. And now, this was what I got in return: a dismissal. I had always been the one in the background, working quietly, making sure everything functioned seamlessly. Sophia, on the other hand, was the face of the company, the one making the deals, closing the clients, and building a network of connections. "You don't need me," I said, more to myself than to her. Her eyes glinted with a mix of triumph and cold indifference. "If you're really so brilliant, why don't you go fix something for yourself?" she continued. The words stung, deeper than I cared to admit. I looked out the window at the sprawling cityscape of New York. Our penthouse sat high above the streets, a symbol of everything we had achieved together. Or so I thought. What had once felt like a shared victory now seemed like a hollow prize, one built on lies. I had built the technical infrastructure of Green Tech Solutions, poured countless hours into perfecting the code, creating the systems, making sure everything was scalable, secure, and efficient. But in Sophia's eyes, that wasn't enough. I wasn't enough. I had spent so long trying to make her proud, trying to be the perfect partner, the perfect technical co-founder. But in the end, I was just another tool to her, a resource to be used until it was no longer needed. And in that moment, I realized the truth. We had never been partners. I had been her employee, and now it was time for me to walk away. I stood there for a moment, my bag clutched in my hand, before I turned and walked out of the apartment. As I closed the door behind me, I felt a sense of finality, like a door slamming shut on a chapter of my life. I had been dismissed, pushed aside, and I knew there was no going back. The next month passed in a blur. I moved into a small apartment, started the slow process of untangling my life from everything that had been tied to green tech. I thought I'd feel relief, but instead there was only a heavy weight that sat on my chest. I wasn't just leaving a company, I was leaving a marriage, a life I had built with someone I thought I knew. Then came the call. It was late, too late for any professional call, and the moment I saw Sophia's name on my phone, my stomach dropped. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks, and the tone of her voice when she answered was frantic, desperate. "Noah?" she gasped. "The entire server just crashed. We've lost everything. You need to fix this now." I could hear the panic in her voice, the fear that she might lose everything she had built. For a moment, I almost felt sympathy for her. But then, as the reality of everything we'd been through together sank in, I realized that this wasn't my problem anymore. I wasn't her technical consultant, her employee, or her partner. I was nothing to her now. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the phone in my hand. "You're going to have to fix it, Sophia," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm not the one who's going to save you anymore." And with that, I hung up. But before I could dive into that call, into everything that had led me to this point, let me rewind and tell you how it all went down. 5 years ago, I was a systems architect for a large tech firm, living comfortably with no real desire to change. At 30, I was focused on my work, making a decent salary, and not looking for anything more. That was until I met Sophia Greenfield. She was smart, ambitious, and full of ideas that I found intriguing. She had this vision for a tech consulting firm that I couldn't shake. When she asked me to join forces, I didn't hesitate. Her plan was simple: a company that helped startups build better infrastructure. I had the technical expertise, she had the business acumen. Together, we could make something great. Or so I thought. We launched Green Tech Solutions 6 months later. She insisted on using her last name for the branding, certain it would resonate better with potential clients. I didn't care much about the name. I was consumed by the work. I built everything: the back-end systems, the security protocols, the client management platforms. I worked 16-hour days, sacrificing sleep, relationships, everything, for what I thought was our future. And in the beginning, things were great. We were a team. We had a shared vision. But as time went on, the cracks began to show. And now, standing on the other side, I can see where it all started to unravel. It didn't take long for the cracks to start showing. At first, I thought it was just the natural growing pains of a new company. The sleepless nights, the endless coding, the stress, everyone goes through it, right? But after a year, I started noticing something that made me question everything. Sophia had always been brilliant, no doubt about that. Her ability to talk to investors, close deals, and make everything sound like it was destined for greatness was something I admired. But as the company grew, I began to realize that her vision was different from mine. She had the big picture, clients, revenue, growth, but she had started to forget about the small pieces that made the whole thing work. My pieces. We were at an industry gala, one of those high-profile events where the tech elite gather to rub shoulders, sip overpriced champagne, and talk about disruptive innovation like it was the only thing that mattered. Sophia was in her element, as always, commanding the attention of everyone in the room with her smile and her charisma. I wasn't exactly a social butterfly, so I stuck to the edges of the room, trying not to be in the way. That was when a journalist from Tech Radar came up to us, asking for an interview about the company's rapid success. Sophia looked at me, and then at the journalist, and I could see the calculation in her eyes. She smiled, never missing a beat. "Noah here is our technical consultant," she said, her tone smooth as silk. "He's been great with the back end, making sure our systems are running smoothly. But really, I'm the one with the vision. I'm the one who's been pushing us forward." I felt my stomach twist. "We built this together," I said quietly, trying to interject. "The architecture, the systems, the scalability. We built it together." Sophia laughed lightly, dismissing my words with a wave of her hand. "Oh, Noah's being modest," she said with that patronizing tone I had grown to hate. "He's an excellent programmer, no doubt, but the real work, client relations, growth, business development, that's what drives us." The words stung, but I kept my face neutral. The journalist smiled and nodded, and then the conversation shifted entirely to Sophia. I stood there, feeling like a ghost in my own company. She had just brushed off everything I had done as if it was nothing, like the hours, the code, the systems that were keeping everything running smoothly didn't matter. It was a moment that stuck with me, and I began to wonder if she had been seeing me this way all along. Just the technical guy. A week later, I started noticing more of the same. At meetings, Sophia began introducing me less and less as a co-founder and more as a contractor. She handled the clients, handled the deals, handled the spotlight. I handled the code. The reality of the situation hit me like a ton of bricks. She was taking full ownership of the company, and I was fading into the background. I started asking myself, how did I let this happen? Things only got worse as the business grew. It was no longer about us building something together. It became her empire. She started making decisions without consulting me, claiming she didn't need to, saying things like, "This is my company. I know what's best." She began paying herself twice as much as I was making, justifying it by saying she was the one bringing in all the clients. I couldn't argue with her logic. It made sense from a business standpoint. But I was the one building the systems that allowed everything to run smoothly. Without me, there was no business, no company to grow. It was as if my contribution no longer mattered. The tipping point came when we had a major client, a pharmaceutical company, on board. The contract was worth millions, and it was a huge win for us. I had spent weeks working on the custom systems they needed, ensuring their data would be secure and their processes would run efficiently. It was my finest work. But when we met with the client to finalize the deal, Sophia introduced me as a mere consultant again. And when the client asked about the technical details, she handled it all herself, leaving me out of the conversation entirely. That night, I confronted her. "Sophia, you can't keep doing this," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We built this company together. I built the systems, I designed the infrastructure that's allowing us to scale, and you're acting like I'm just some employee. You can't take all the credit." Her response was cold. "I'm the one making the deals. I'm the one who's keeping the clients happy. You're just the guy who writes code. I need you to understand that." Those words hit harder than anything she had ever said to me. I had sacrificed my life, my time, my energy for this company, and she had reduced me to just the guy who writes code. I was no longer her partner. I was nothing more than an employee, expendable, replaceable. And that was when I realized I wasn't just losing my marriage, I was losing my identity. I had given everything to Green Tech Solutions, and now I was nothing in her eyes. I had no choice but to walk away. I started pulling back after that. I stopped working late, stopped answering her calls during off hours, and started treating the company like a job instead of a shared dream. The tension between us built slowly, like a pressure cooker waiting to explode. But I was too tired to fight anymore. And that's when everything started to fall apart. The cracks that had started to form in our business soon turned into a full-blown fracture. I knew I had to get out of the toxic environment that Green Tech had become. I wasn't just leaving a company. I was walking away from a life I had built, a life I had sacrificed everything for. The frustration, the disappointment, the realization that I had been invisible in my own creation, it was suffocating. But leaving was not the end of the story, and I knew there would be consequences. I had built something important, something irreplaceable, and I wasn't going to let it be destroyed. 3 weeks after I left, the first signs of disaster appeared. It was an ordinary Tuesday, and I was sitting at a coffee shop when I saw the email notification pop up on my phone. It was from an old colleague at Green Tech, Jake, who had been part of the team when we first started. I opened the email and my stomach sank. It was a system error report. The email said the main database was down and had been for several hours. No one could access the client data. The automated reporting system was malfunctioning, and the security protocols I had implemented were failing. The worst part? No one could figure out how to fix it. I wasn't surprised. Without me maintaining the system, they were flying blind. I had designed everything so precisely, so carefully, that without the intimate knowledge of how it all worked together, the whole thing could crumble. But I wasn't about to offer help. I'd had enough of being treated like I was replaceable. I'd had enough of being overlooked and underappreciated. The phone calls started soon after. The first was from Sophia, and I couldn't even bring myself to answer it. I knew what it would be about. The second came from one of the contractors she'd hired to help with the issue. They were asking questions I knew they wouldn't understand, trying to navigate a system they had no experience with. I felt a small pang of guilt, but I quickly pushed it away. This was the consequence of everything she had done. This was what happened when you take someone's work for granted, when you treat them like a cog in a machine and expect them to just keep turning. I wasn't going to fix it for her. The calls kept coming, relentless and pleading. After the third one, I finally picked up just to see how deep the mess had gotten. "Noah, please, you have to help us. We can't fix this." Sophia's voice came through the phone, her usual confidence replaced with desperation. I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the city. "You're going to have to figure it out, Sophia. This is your company now, right? You've got the vision, the clients, and the business sense. Why don't you use that to fix this mess?" I said, my voice steady but firm. There was a long pause before she spoke again, her tone quieter. "I can't do this without you, Noah. Please, please, I need your help." It was in that moment that I knew how much I had been taken for granted. She wasn't asking me for my expertise. She was pleading because she knew that without me, Green Tech would fall apart. I wasn't just the back-end guy. I was the backbone of the entire company. And now, she needed me, but it was too late. I hung up without saying another word. In the weeks that followed, things only got worse. The contractors they brought in failed to understand the systems I had designed. They couldn't patch the holes, fix the vulnerabilities, or optimize the systems to handle the scale we had built. Clients started pulling out. The pharmaceutical company we had landed, one of the biggest wins of our careers, was the first to go. Their contract was worth millions, and they left because they couldn't get the technical support they needed. Without the systems in place, without the architecture I had built, Green Tech couldn't function. I saw the news in a TechCrunch article 2 days later. Green Tech Solutions faces major setback as client leaves over technical issues. That was when it hit me. The company was falling apart, and fast. I had built everything, but in her desire for control, Sophia had never bothered to truly understand it. She had never learned the intricacies, the dependencies, the hidden complexities that made the system work. And now, it was unraveling. It wasn't long before Sophia came back to me again. Her messages were frantic, pleading for me to come back, to fix the systems, to save the company. But I was done. I had already made my choice. I wasn't going to be her safety net anymore. And that's when I realized something important. I didn't need Green Tech to succeed. I didn't need Sophia to recognize my worth. I had the skills, the experience, and the knowledge to build something on my own, something that valued my contributions from the ground up. It wasn't just about the company anymore. It was about me, my own worth, and my ability to move forward without her. A few weeks after all of this unfolded, I got a call from an investor named James Warner. He had heard about the collapse of Green Tech and wanted to know the truth. I told him everything. The systems I had built, the mistakes Sophia had made, the way she had dismissed my contributions. He listened, and after a long conversation, he made me an offer. "Let's start something new," he said. "You handle the tech, I'll handle the business. We'll build something together where your work is valued, no more being pushed aside." And just like that, the door that had closed behind me opened again, this time with a better future on the other side. But this time, I was the one in control. The next few months felt like a whirlwind. I threw myself into the work with James, eager to build something new and different, something where I wouldn't just be a cog in the machine. I wasn't the employee anymore. I was the co-founder, the architect of the systems that would form the foundation of our company. The fact that James truly valued my expertise gave me a sense of ownership that I hadn't felt in years. Unlike Sophia, who had always seen me as a means to an end, James treated me like a partner. He respected my work, my contributions, and that made all the difference. We named our new company Prism Technologies. It was a fresh start, one where we would combine technical innovation with a business structure that didn't leave the developers in the shadows. James handled the client acquisition, the business deals, and the financials, while I focused on building the systems. Together, we made decisions collaboratively, ensuring that the tech side was always at the forefront of every choice we made. It was everything I had hoped for when Sophia and I first started Green Tech, only this time, I felt like I was truly a part of it. The early days were challenging, of course. Building a new company from the ground up is never easy, and there were plenty of long nights. But this time, I didn't feel like I was sacrificing my personal life just to keep the business afloat. We made sure to establish clear boundaries and realistic expectations. I was working hard, but I wasn't burning myself out. And most importantly, I was working with someone who understood the value of a strong technical foundation. One of the biggest challenges we faced in those first few months was convincing clients to trust us after the mess that Green Tech had left behind. Word had gotten around that their systems were failing, that they were having trouble providing the kind of support they'd promised. But we were transparent. We told potential clients exactly what happened and how we planned to do things differently. We offered solutions that would be more reliable, more sustainable, and we backed up our promises with the technical expertise to deliver. It didn't take long before our reputation started to grow. We landed a few small but promising contracts, and then the big break came. A global retailer, one of the largest in the world, contacted us. They had been a client of Green Tech's, but their systems had collapsed under the pressure of their growing business. They wanted a complete overhaul of their infrastructure, and they needed it fast. James and I jumped on the opportunity, knowing this could be the turning point for Prism. I dove headfirst into the project, designing a system that would scale with the retailer's needs, incorporating new security protocols, automation features, and real-time data analytics. It was the kind of challenge that got my blood pumping. And this time, there was no one to undermine my efforts or take credit for my work. I was doing what I loved, and I had a partner who appreciated it. The project took 6 months to complete, but it was worth it. When the retailer's new system went live, it was a game changer. The data was flowing seamlessly, the customer service reps could access all the information they needed in real time, and the sales team had the tools they needed to close deals faster than ever. Within weeks, the retailer's sales started to climb, and they gave us glowing feedback. We had successfully turned their failing infrastructure into a powerhouse. That success was the catalyst for everything that followed. Word spread about Prism's ability to deliver. More clients started reaching out to us, and we were able to hire additional developers to help with the growing demand. It felt like everything was falling into place. But of course, there was always the lingering thought in the back of my mind. Sophia. I had walked away from Green Tech, from her, and part of me wondered if she was watching us rise. I knew she'd never admit it, but part of me hoped she would realize the value of what I had brought to the table. Maybe she would see that without the technical infrastructure I had built, her vision would have crumbled. As Prism began to grow, so did our confidence. We weren't just rebuilding the systems we had designed for Green Tech. We were creating something new, something better. We implemented stronger security, better user interfaces, and more streamlined processes. We documented everything meticulously, ensuring that our systems could stand on their own, that no one would ever be left in the dark the way I had been at Green Tech. Our company was starting to thrive, and I could finally breathe. I wasn't just a behind-the-scenes player. I was recognized for my work, respected for my expertise, and valued as a true partner. And that made all the difference. But then came the phone call. It was late one evening, and I had just finished a meeting with a new client. I was about to head home when my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. I answered without thinking. "Hello, Noah." The voice on the other end was unmistakable. It was Sophia. "Hi, Sophia," I said, keeping my tone neutral. She hesitated, then spoke with a calmness that surprised me. "I need to talk to you about Green Tech." I felt a tight knot form in my stomach. "What about it?" Her voice cracked slightly. "It's failing. Everything we built is falling apart, Noah. We're losing clients, and I don't know how to fix it." The call with Sophia was like a punch to the gut. Hearing her voice again, after everything, stirred up emotions I had worked so hard to bury. Part of me wanted to hang up, to ignore her, to leave her to face the consequences of her actions. But another part, one I hated to admit, felt a twinge of empathy. Maybe it was the years we'd spent together, the dreams we had shared, or maybe it was just the human side of me that couldn't completely shut off. But I didn't give her the satisfaction of answering immediately. Instead, I let the silence stretch between us, making her wait. Finally, I spoke, my voice calm but firm. "You're calling me because Green Tech is failing, aren't you?" There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear her breathing, soft and shaky. "Yes," she finally said, her voice quieter now. "It's worse than I thought. I thought I could handle it, but the systems, they're not just broken. They're unmanageable without you." I swallowed the anger rising in my throat. "You never thought you'd need me, did you, Sophia?" The words came out sharper than I intended. "You always thought you could do it alone. You always treated my work like it was secondary, like I was just some employee who could be replaced the moment it suited you." "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I was wrong, Noah. I didn't see it. I didn't understand. But I do now. I need you. The company needs you. Please, I can't do this without you. I don't know how to fix it." I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions inside me. Part of me wanted to laugh, to tell her that she had made this bed and now she could lie in it. But instead, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. It wasn't about gloating or seeking revenge. It was about the realization that I had been right all along. "You're right about one thing, Sophia," I said quietly. "You can't do it without me. I built Green Tech from the ground up. I created the infrastructure, designed the systems, and laid the foundation. You may have had the vision, but I was the one who made it real, and now you're paying the price for not recognizing that." There was a long silence on the other end, and I could hear her struggling to find the right words. I didn't mean for this to happen, Noah. I should have treated you differently. I should have seen what you brought to the table." "Yeah, well, it's a little late for that now," I said, my voice hardening. "You pushed me out of the picture, Sophia. You made it clear that I was replaceable, just a cog in your machine. You made your bed, and now you have to sleep in it." I could feel the tension in her voice, the weight of everything that had happened between us. Please, Noah, I'm asking you to help. I don't know who else to turn to. I closed my eyes and took another deep breath, fighting the temptation to give in. Part of me wanted to fix it, to dive into the systems I had designed and make everything work again. But the truth was, I couldn't go back to being her fixer, her employee. I had spent too many years in the shadows, building something only to have it stolen from me. I wasn't going to let that happen again. No, I said, my voice firm. I'm not coming back to fix your mess. You want to learn how to fix it? You're going to have to do it without me. But you're the CEO, Sophia, I interrupted. You made your choices. Now you get to deal with the consequences. I'm done being your back-end support. I'm done being the guy who fixes everything while you take the credit. This is your problem now. You fix it. There was a long pause. I could hear her trying to process what I had just said, the weight of my words sinking in. And for the first time, I realized that I was at peace with my decision. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I had moved on. And that was something I hadn't been able to say in years. Good luck, Sophia, I said finally. You'll figure it out. You always do. And with that, I hung up the phone. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I didn't need to fix her problems. I didn't need to play the hero anymore. I had walked away from green tech, from her, and I had found something better. I had found my worth again, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that from me. As I sat back in my chair, staring at the city skyline outside my window, I knew that everything had changed. I had built something new, something that valued me as a partner, as an equal. And I wasn't about to throw that away for a company that had never truly appreciated what I brought to the table. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. It's strange, the way time can pass when you're not paying attention, but once you look back, it feels like a blur. The first few months after I left Green Tech were a whirlwind. I threw myself into building Prism Technologies with James. We had clients, we had momentum, and most importantly, we had a sense of mutual respect that made the work feel purposeful again. Everything was different this time, not just the systems we were building, but the way the company was structured. We made sure that no one person had too much control, and no one was left behind. Everyone's contributions mattered. For once, I felt like I was a part of something that wasn't just about one person's vision. It was about the team. Prism was growing steadily, and with every new contract, I felt more and more like I was reclaiming the ground I'd lost in the past. The tech was solid, the client relationships were built on trust, and the work we did was truly making a difference. Every project we completed felt like a step forward, not just for the company, but for me personally. I wasn't just the technical guy anymore. I was a co-founder, a leader in my own right. It was exactly the kind of success I'd wanted when Sophia and I first started Green Tech, but this time it was real. But despite all the progress, despite the success, there was always a part of me that couldn't fully shake the memories of Green Tech. That nagging voice in my head would pop up now and then. What had happened to Sophia? How was she dealing with the mess I'd left behind? Was she still trying to fix the broken systems, still scrambling to maintain the empire she thought she could build without me? I didn't care, or at least, I tried not to. The more time passed, the less I thought about it. I had built something better, and that was all that mattered. But then one evening, everything changed. It started with a phone call. It was an unknown number, and I almost didn't pick up, but something made me answer. And when I did, I heard her voice. Noah, Sophia said, her voice as familiar as it was foreign. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need your help. Please, I don't know what else to do. I paused, trying to process the words. It had been months since I'd heard from her, months since I'd walked away. I hadn't expected this. Hadn't expected her to reach out, let alone admit she needed help. Part of me wanted to hang up, to remind her that she had made her choices, and now it was her problem to fix. But another part of me, one I hated to admit, felt a flicker of sympathy. You're calling me for help? I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. After everything that happened? There was silence on the other end for a moment. I could hear her breathing, trying to steady herself. I was wrong, Noah. I'm sorry. I didn't understand what you were doing back then. I didn't see your value. And now, green tech is falling apart. We've lost clients, we've lost our reputation. The systems you built, they're beyond repair without you. I let her words hang in the air, processing everything she said. I had spent so long resenting her, so long convinced that I was better off without her and without green tech. But hearing her say she was wrong, hearing her admit that she couldn't fix it without me, that did something to me. It felt like the final, painful acknowledgement of everything I had known all along. She had never truly valued me or what I brought to the table, and now she was paying the price. But was I really willing to walk away and let everything I built crumble because of her mistakes? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I had to say. I'm not coming back to green tech, Sophia. I'm done with that part of my life. Her voice cracked. Noah, please. I'm not asking you to come back. I'm asking you to help us fix it. I can't do it without you. I know I treated you badly. I know I took you for granted, but I need you now. I don't know how to fix it, and I don't know where to turn. I stayed silent for a long time, weighing my options. Part of me wanted to say no, to refuse her, to make her deal with the mess she created. But another part of me, the part that had always tried to help, wanted to reach out and fix the broken systems I had designed. I could feel the pull, the desire to be the hero again, to fix the impossible. But I had already done that once, and I wasn't going to let it consume me again. No, I said, my voice steady. I'm not coming back. You want to fix it, you do it. You figure it out. There was a long silence on the other end, and I could hear the weight of my words sinking in. I'm sorry, Noah, she said softly. I should have never let it get this far. Yeah, I said quietly. You should have. I ended the call and put the phone down, letting out a long breath. It wasn't a feeling of triumph that washed over me. It wasn't satisfaction or relief. It was just finality. I had made my choice, and I was moving forward with my life. Green tech was her responsibility now, just as Prism was mine. I wasn't going to let her mistakes dictate my future anymore. As I sat there, staring out at the city below, I realized that I had already won. I had built something new, something that valued me for who I was, not just for what I could do. And that was all I needed. Everything else, including Sophia's mess, was hers to clean up. I was done being her savior. It was time to live my own life. In life, never underestimate the value of your contributions, especially when others fail to recognize them. Always know your worth and stand firm in it. Don't let anyone, no matter how close, diminish what you bring to the table. If you find yourself in a situation where you're being undervalued or overlooked, don't be afraid to walk away. Trust that there is something better for you, something that appreciates you for who you are. Remember, success isn't about being recognized by others. It's about knowing and owning your own worth, regardless of external validation. Take control and move forward confidently.